unimaginable amounts of money can be created out of thin air, which George W. Bush did. And then Barack Obama doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on, going, well, if we can invent that much money for that purpose, then we can invent $1 trillion so that everybody has socialized medicine in the United States. As soon as you had that extrapolation from George W. Bush's creation of whatever he created, it was in the hundreds of billions, to the trillions, then the question is, okay, how much money is Donald J. Trump going to invent through the U.S. Fed? And the United States is the only country on the planet that can do that. When I was talking to Jeff Schuyler on the phone, I was saying, I think we have to just skip the quadrillion and go right to quintillion, if not sextillion, if the United States is going to finance the entire country, the entire United States, top to bottom, for however long it has to do that before we get back to some semblance of normalcy. Like, the amounts of money that you're talking about are really, really inconceivable. But then, for a country of 350 million people, or whatever the United States population is, it's around there, inventing $1 trillion is already lunatic. That money does not actually exist. It never will exist unless you're going to invent fourth dimensional money that billows exponentially, pretty much the way they're talking about the worst case scenario of the COVID-19 in the north of Italy. I think you could probably calculate it mathematically, and the United States, as I say, the United States would be able to do it, and I think all of the other G7 countries would then just fall into lockstep. I mean, right now, it would make sense if the United States is inventing $3 trillion, which is what they're talking about, that Canada would invent $300 billion. $300 billion is not going to finance everyone in Canada. Even just rolling it out is going to be a very difficult task, but definitely not impossible. I mean, this is one of the things where our governments have us by the short and curlies, and we have the government by the short and curlies, because we can say, I'm a taxpayer. You know my bank account. You know how to access them because you do direct deposit to it. You can invent money and you can deposit directly into my account and every other taxpayer's account. How much money are you going to deposit? Which implies how much money are you going to need to create? That to me is the next game in this really, really amazing chess match that I never thought I would live to see happening, but this is the question. I mean, I was just talking to one of the guys one of the public service workers who works at City Hall, and they're doing some work outside, basically sealing off the outside of City Hall so that nobody's using any of the places to sit down so that everybody stays home. And he's getting paid to come in and do that, but then he's not getting paid for anything else. He's laid off. But as he points out, the mayor and council are still getting paid. So you extrapolate that upwards from municipal to provincial to federal, and the question at the top has to be, you've been inventing money for decades. Invent money, but invent it on an exponentially large level, and then, okay, now we're into a whole different kind of environment. Now we're into we just do that temporarily and then get the government back out of that? Because if we don't do that, we will be communist China. We will have people living in animal cages and counting themselves lucky that they have an animal cage to themselves and a bowl of rice a day. Okay, Dave Sim gets down off of his soapbox.
Well, I was going to say, you kind of sort of already told this story, because that's, you're talking about Palnu at this point.
Right. I realize that a lot of people are going, this is sounding really familiar to me. And it's like, okay, I have a little better grasp of these things than, let's say, your average Star Wars fan, where you can watch all of the Star Wars movies and, never come anywhere near anything remotely having to do with how things structurally exist. But you really don't want to be looking at Dave Sim going, well, what are the answers then if you know all of this stuff? And it's like, I have, as Tony Randall said when he was on the Tonight Show, and Johnny Carson was saying to him, you have you're an expert on opera. And he said, I have a fan's knowledge of opera, which is very different from actually knowing opera. Dave Sim knows funny books, inside and out. But no, you don't want Dave Sim telling you, except in terms of the broad strokes as far as he understands them, this is what I think is the next step in the chess game, is the United States decides how much wealth can be created at one time. And then I'm hoping, because Washington is still Washington, going all the way back to George Washington, the United States would then get its far out of that once the COVID-19 crisis is passed, which we have to look at. If a basket case country like China can get pretty much all the way through it in 2 months, their big spike was in January, and we're now at the beginning of April. If they can get through it in 2 months, presumably we can get through it in 2 months. But 2 months is still a long time. If you look at the statistics of the number of people who are paycheck to paycheck, they don't save. They have absolutely no savings. Every penny that they come in goes to buying the necessities of life. A month from now, those people are in serious, serious trouble. And then progressively from there, the people who have managed to put aside 2 or 3 months worth of money, they will be fine if this lasts 2 months. They won't be fine, but they'll take a massive hit. But they will get through on the other side and then start rebuilding from there. If you're seriously talking about telling everybody you have to go home and not go out, there is zero commerce, absolutely nothing going on except selling food in grocery stores and leaving pharmacies open, then you're talking about, a conservative estimate in my mind, you're talking about inventing a quintillion of dollars and pumping it out through the tax system, the same as an oil pipeline. You can have an oil pipeline going this way, or you can have it going the other way. They're set up to do that. In this case, you go, the United States will not take money from the American people for the next 2 months. The United States will give money to the American people in the proportion that is necessary to keep people from starving to death.